The Bears of Blue River by Charles Major. Chapter 1. The Big Bear. Away back in the 20s, when Indiana was a baby state, and great forests of tall trees and tangled underbrush darkened what are now her bright plains and sunny hills, there stood upon the east bank of Big Blue River, a mile or two north of the point where that stream crosses the Michigan Road, a cozy log cabin of 2 rooms, 1 front and 1 back. The house faced the west, and stretching off towards the river for a distance equal to twice the width of an ordinary street, was a big blue grass lawn, upon which stood a dozen or more elm and sycamore trees, with a few honey locusts scattered here and there. Immediately at the water's edge, there was a steep slope of 10 or 12 feet. Back of the house, mile upon mile, stretched the deep, dark forest, inhabited by deer and bears, wolves and wildcats, squirrels and birds without number. In the river, the fish were so numerous that they seemed to entreat the boys to catch them and to take them out of their crowded quarters. There were bass and black suckers, sunfish and catfish, to say nothing of the sweetest of all, the big-mouthed red-eye. South of the house stood a log barn, with room in it for 3 horses and 2 cows, and enclosing this barn together with a piece of ground 5 or 6 acres in extent was a palisade fence, 8 or 10 feet high, made of driving poles into the ground close together. In this enclosure the farmer kept his stock, consisting of a few sheep and cattle, and here also the chickens, geese, and ducks were driven at nightfall to save them from varmints, as all prowling animals were called by the settlers. The man who had built the log hut, and who lived in it and owned the adjoining land at the time of which I write, bore the name of Balser Brent. Balser is probably a corruption of Balzer, but however that may be, Balser was his name, and Balser was the name of his boy, who was the hero of the bear stories which I am about to tell you. Mr. Brent and his young wife had moved to the Blue River settlement from North Carolina, where young Balser was a little boy 5 or 6 years of age. They had purchased the 80 upon which they lived from the United States at a sale of public land held in the town of Brookville on Whitewater, and had paid for it what was then considered a good round sum, $1 per acre. They had received a deed for their 80 from no less a person than James Monroe, then President of the United States. This deed, which is called a patent, was written in sheepskin, signed by the President's own hand, and is still preserved by the descendants of Mr. Brent as one of the title deeds to the land it conveyed. The house, as I have told you, consisted of 2 large rooms, or buildings, separated by a passageway 6 or 8 feet broad, which was roofed over, but open at both ends on the north and south. The back room was a kitchen, and the front room was parlor, bedroom, sitting room, and library all in one.